Both said voters are
Lights
using
on.
mail-in ballots and early voting in record numbers. So they wanted to hold this debate now in June, not in September after the
I am
convention.
blurry out,
in this new
and my eyes are dilated because I went to the eye doctor.
Of meeting the voters.
But I'm here
Do you
for America.
expect that
I
there's
got
gonna
my
be a large
shirt, I got my
audience
hat,
tonight
I'm
at
wearing
home?
pants. You can't see
There
that.
might be numbers for the viewing numbers for debates that are going
I'm
up
ready.
in recent years. With the
I'm ready
exception of
for
2020,
this
people are
match.
tuning in.
It's going
A lot
to
of
be
people that are tuning
between
in are partisans.
two people.
And yes, early
On
voting
one
matters.
corner, you got an old
Nobody's
man,
voting for
Biden,
president yet because
got a
these guys
crackhead
aren't actually
son.
the nominees yet. That doesn't happen until the
He made
conventions.
everything
I think
expensive.
the one in September.
And then
will
on the
be
other side, you got
more on
Trump,
track for early
who's a
voting.
convicted
One thing
felon,
we know from political science
and he
research
grabs
is that
people by the
debates
pussy.
may
So this is going to be
move
one
some
hell of a
polling
fight, man.
sometimes, but they
I
don't seem
can't
to
wait
move
for
very
it. I
many votes.
cannot wait for it.
And if
But
one
the
guy does really
underdog
well or really
is
poorly
Trump.
tonight,
It's on
polling numbers may
CNN.
shift,
Mr.
but then they'll settle
Fake
back to their
News
normal place to where they
itself
were. Then again,
is
you've got the
moderating it.
conventions, and similarly, if
He
it
has
bounces,
to
Trump will get a
talk
bounce, Biden will get a bounce,
and then
they'll
be
settle
quiet.
in.
Like,
I'm really not sure that tonight's
everything's
debate
against
does
him.
much for the outcome
So
of the
we'll see
election.
how this
Neither
goes.
of these guys is going to win the election tonight. One could imagine.
Beautiful wife made
tonight
food.
making
Thank you,
the
I. And
election
I got a
trickier
couple of beers to
for one
drink
candidate or the
when
other,
we really
but,
do
I
need
mean,
it.
most of us
But
are
yeah,
thinking
you
about
ready
the
for
4th of
this,
July
Casper?
weekend. We're not thinking about the election.
Oh,
in November.
absolutely.
Does age matter tonight?
Well,
We got
Donald
7
Trump
minutes
is certainly
till.
going to try to make it matter. He's
Oh,
going to
boy.
say that his opponent is old and out
This is
of
gonna be
touch,
weird,
and
man.
We're not going to probably see the Reagan.
It really
You know,
is,
I won't
though.
make my opponent's youth and inexperience an issue.
It's going to be.
Certainly Donald Trump and
It's
Joe
gonna be
Biden
weird.
both
It's gonna
wanna
be
make their
funny.
opponent
I'm
the
gonna
worst
laugh
caricature of
when
their
shit goes
opponent
down.
possible. And part of the caricature of Biden is that he's, old and gumming his jello. And we'll see if that works.
Well,
Dude.
the former president is
Even Peter
78.
Loge, Peter
President Biden
Loogie,
is
he just said
81.
he's old.
There's 3 years difference there.
That's true. The people who tend to talk about the age the most are the press, who then say, so, President Biden is really old. What do you think? And voters go, wow, I guess he's really old. I think what matters is mental acuity. And we've seen again and again,
I should probably quit
Biden's
my
State of the
game.
Union address and other events has really
Well,
shown
you can
up
do
in
whatever
big
you want,
moments.
Casper.
And
Just
I
know
know the
that
Biden campaign is hoping for that.
America's
tonight. They look,
watching.
He's on top of his game. He's sharp as a tack. He shuffles a bit. He looks old because he's old. But
America's
mentally,
watching,
he's the guy
dog.
for the job, and Trump is obviously going to try to undermine that. Both campaigns
Less
are
than
gonna
6
use tonight,
minutes.
pull clips from tonight, pull videos.
Peter
of the
Loogie,
worst
George
moments of their
Washington
opponent
University
possible,
School of
and say,
Media and
"See,
Public
this is what my
Affairs."
opponent's about. And there's going to be a
What a
moment
weird
when Joe
choice to
Biden
have.
looks old.
So it's not about policy. It sounds a lot like about personality. And are those two issues so intertwined?
The American people,
Part about
by and large, don't vote on
personality.
policy. We like to think we do. But none of
I'm
us
just gonna
carries
open
around
the
a
Sapporo
spreadsheet in
right
our
now.
head
Fuck
balancing
it.
3 points for abortion and 2 for guns, or do the math and divide by 4 or something like that.
You want to start?
Most of
start,
us are Democrats.
Start
and
real.
Republicans, and even independents
I
tend to be
mean,
really reliably partisan.
If I'm going to be
I think what
honest,
we're looking
presidential
for, though,
campaigns have
is my
been
guy really up to the
popularity
task. You've got
contests
Trump has been picking
for
up points
years
lately.
now.
One
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Democrats' arguments is
Well,
there's a bit of Trump amnesia.
Yes and no.
And so hopefully
Let me
the
redo
Biden
my
campaign
chat
has to do
box
is
so I can
remind
see
voters,
everybody.
hey, he sounds a little wacky. So those
Much
new
better. Now
numbers
it's
will then
working.
fade back. And again, it's not on a policy.
Yes,
Right.
it's been
If
popular.
Presidents rule
But,
on
you know,
what
they got that
Americans want as public
gerrymandering
policy, they have
thing,
a
like,
border along
Every
with a
time
wall
a
on the southern
president wins a
border,
popular
and we have
vote,
a
they
lot
don't
of gun control.
they don't win
We
the
have
real
nothing.
vote. All right.
What we want is somebody who can represent and stand up for our values. This is me. Here's who I want to project myself and my country to be in the White House. And again, both guys I think are going to want
The
to
problem is
demonstrate
that
they're sharp. They're on top
it's
of the
not
facts, they're
necessarily
rational, they're reasonable,
gerrymandering,
they
though.
get the
Like,
task done.
gerrymandering
while
is
simultaneously
redistricting
trying to go
things.
to the opponent into being the worst caricature
That's
of
true.
themselves.
I don't know what the
Peter
fuck I'm
Loge
talking
is the
about.
chair
I'm here for the
at
debate,
School
dude.
of Media
Debate
and Public
only.
Affairs at George
Not how it
Washington
works,
University. Thank you
but how
for
it's
your
said.
time. We appreciate it.
That's why I'm
Many
here.
thanks. Always happy to join you.
As we talked about, Peter Loge was
See,
talking
I'm just
about
here for the
their
blood sports, so-
policy, their records
Exactly.
will come
Exactly.
up tonight, and voters will have a record for both of these candidates. That was an issue back in 2020 as well. Take a look at the two candidates talking about their political records at the first debate.
Oh my gosh.
In Cleveland.
Just get to the
and again,
freaking
these
debate.
debates,
I know,
these
get to the freaking
former-
debate, man.
These previous debates and the vice presidential debates from all cycles can be found if you go to our website,
If you go to our
cspan.org. If you've missed
website.
any of them, you can find it there. Again, back in 2020, talking about their political records.
Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent?
Because
Oh, this is a
there has
recap.
never been an administration
Go
or
ahead, Drew.
president who has
Hey,
done
what's
more
going on?
than I've done.
I am
in a period of
streaming
3.5
the
years.
American
And that's despite
debates.
the impeachment
Are you going to
hoax.
watch, Turd?
And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole
not at
big
all.
con job. But despite
It's going to be
going through all
one
of
hell
these
of a
things, where I
fight.
had to
It's going to be
fight
old man
both
versus
flanks
old
and
man,
behind
dude.
me and above.
Yeah,
there has
I
never
don't
been an
care. I'm
administration
gonna go play
that's
zombies.
done what I've done.
Okay, you
The
go play
greatest
zombies,
before
dog.
COVID came in, the
Good
greatest
luck.
economy
I
in
love your
history,
picture, by
lowest
the way.
unemployment
Thank
numbers.
you, because of my
Everything was
American
good.
flag and hat.
Everything was going. And by the way,
Oh,
there
you
was
mean the other
unity
one
going
where
to
I'm like,
happen.
look like
People were calling me for the
There's
first
another
time in
one?
years. They were calling.
The one
and
with
they
the
were
shades,
saying,
right?
It's time, maybe.
Yeah.
And then what happened? We got hit, but
Hell
now
yeah,
we're
dude.
building it back up again. A rebuilding of the
All right, Turd.
military, including
2
Space
minutes.
Force
Bye-bye.
and all
Bye.
of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was
guess
a
I'm still
mess under him.
damn it.
308,000 people
I
died
know,
because
I'm
they didn't
working
have
on it.
proper health care. It was a mess.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession.
Okay.
With regard to
Are we
being
just
weaker,
going
Hey,
to play
me-
the other
I'm watching
debate?
stream
that
too.
I've gone head-to-head with Putin
Yeah.
and made it clear to him we're
Yeah.
not going to take any of his stuff.
Some guy.
He's Putin's puppy. He
You
still
cool, dog.
refuses to even say
I'm ready
anything to
for it.
Putin
You ready
about
for
the
it?
bounty on the
It
heads
starts
of
in
American soldiers.
2 minutes, whatever it's at.
That's right.
2 minutes right there.
A look back at the 2020
Look how young they
presidential
were.
debate, the
They
first
look
one that
so
took place
young.
in Cleveland. Now we are just about 2 minutes away from
Let's go.
tonight's
2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2
presidential
minutes,
I'm not sure
2
debate.
young
Try to
is
get in
word
David, who's
for
in
it. I'm going to be
California.
honest with
Voting
In
you,
for a
man.
third-party
2020,
candidate. There will
whatever
only
that
be two
last
candidates
speech
on
was,
stage
they
tonight.
look
David,
fucking young,
what do you
dog.
want to hear from them?
I want to hear to shut the border and quit letting these people in our country. And because there's no way that these people that's coming into our country illegally and stuff is going to get jobs, be able to pay for their rent, their food, their insurance.
The
their-
only real
their
guy in
clothes,
California.
and
He's
every-
like, get
and
that shit
everything
out of
else
here,
to
dog.
live except through a socialist
I mean-
system that the government's probably starting up, going for. This isn't right. The border
It is
needs
California.
To be closed. These people need to be deported because America first.
All right, so immigration
Damn.
is your issue, David, that you want to hear
Short,
from these candidates.
sweet,
Who are you supporting in November?
And kind of not there.
Donald Trump.
I was going to say
All right,
rambling.
why?
He's really, rambling and
Because I
stop
feel
mid
that
sentence.
he's-
It's the
He
nerves.
loves America. He wants
I mean,
America to
not
be
everyone knows how
number
to
one
speak
and
on,
for
like,
the
an
American
open
people.
mic.
He's not for the globalists.
You just gotta
He's not
speak from
for
the heart.
corporations. He's not out there letting people getting money in for himself.
Look at
and his
that. Her
family and
face
stuff
is so dead.
for-
She's just like,
to send money out to other countries and stuff.
get on
All
with
right,
it.
David. That was David.
Yep,
supporting
all
the
right,
former president.
cut him off.
We're going to hear from you,
I was
all
gonna
of
say,
you, again.
By
after
now,
tonight's
any good radio
debate.
DJ would have
And
cut
we're
this
now
guy off and be
under
like,
a
okay, hey,
minute
thank you.
away from
Bye.
tonight's
Peace.
simulcast of the CNN presidential debate in Atlanta.
Here you go,
on the
15
CNN
seconds. Come on.
networks.
Come on.
Again, about 90 minutes of debate expected tonight
10,
between President Biden
9,
and former President
8,
Trump.
7,
Following the debate,
6,
our coverage
5,
continues right here.
4,
We'll take your phone
3,
calls and your reaction
2,
on social media.
1.
We'll also be live with surrogates from the campaigns inside.
Here we go. Here we go. Those are the guys.
We're live from Georgia,
Live.
a key battleground
Get that
state in the race
NFL
for the White House. In just
camera up
moments,
there
the current
with the
US
drone.
president will
They
debate
get up
the
there.
former
Okay,
US
good night,
president
folks.
As their party's presumptive
That was the whole
nominees, a
debate.
first in American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN
Here we go. Night.
presidential debate.
Presidential debate. Let's go.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you
Oh,
live
boy.
on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol.
Espanol.
Between
Ay, ay,
President
ay.
Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their
Ooh,
rematch
we got
for
4
the nation's
people
highest
watching.
office.
We have 4 people.
Each will
The
make
true
his case
Americans
to
are
the
watching
American
this.
people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of CNN.
I mean,
Hi,
Jake
hi,
Tapper,
Bash.
anchor of CNN's The Lead and co
The only time I watch CNN.
Dana and I will
Yeah, dude.
co-moderate this evening.
No
Our
one's gonna
job
watch this
is
fake
to
news after
facilitate
tonight, man.
A debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the
Let's
debate.
be fair
with
with
you.
ourselves.
Shut it!
Former
The
President
rules.
Trump will be on the
The
left
rules,
side
Casper.
of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to
There's a
answer
coin
question
toss?
and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An
is
additional
this
minute for
football? What
follow-up,
the heck?
clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the
All
debate,
right.
each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate.
And they don't
By
have
accepting our
thank you,
invitation to
Eiley.
debate, both
There's
candidates and
no
their campaigns
staff.
agreed to accept
There's no
these
coach,
rules.
no one
Now,
to give
please
him
welcome
water.
The 46th President of the United States,
Oh
Joe Biden.
shit!
No one to give them a shot in the arm. Some
Biden,
adrenaline.
that cocaine is doing work, man. You're actually walking by yourself.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the
Respectable.
45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
No, they hit him with an EpiPen everything.
Why does he look so sad? Oh my lord. He's like, oh fuck. Biden had cocaine.
Gentlemen,
I'm going to
thanks so much
lose
for being here.
tonight.
Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased.
Why
For
does Jake
example, a
Tapper
basket
look
of
like he
groceries that
missed
cost
out on the
$100
whole,
then now
hipster
costs more than
thing?
$120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible.
Biden's
So
going
what we
straight
had
to the
do is try
bleach.
put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from
killed
Scranton, Pennsylvania. I
100,000.
come of household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug.
Is it 2
all the
minutes
drugs
already?
They conclude beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
All right.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history.
I could afford
$2 trillion.
gas.
I was about to say.
Any president has in any one term.
Afford gas
He's the
and
only president other than Herbert
those
Hoover
Trump
who's lost
checks.
more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant, and the military.
I could afford
when
my
he was president, there
groceries.
was still
Let him
killing
speak,
people in
Casper. Let him
Afghanistan.
speak.
He
Goddammit.
didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
Troops
President
dying?
Trump,
Did
I
you
wanna
hear that,
follow up,
Casper?
If I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
That's a
President
good point.
Trump, over the last
What
8
happened?
years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster.
Welcome, Dimitri.
The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to
the Trump train has no brakes. He just stormed right in, dude.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening?
Okay.
They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
That was a good answer, but that cocaine's working overtime, dog.
And he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything
He's not
they
believing
want,
it.
and they think we're stupid.
He's like, you
They
have
think
no
we're
friends,
very
dog.
stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
So far, it's civil.
This morning,
it's very
the
civil.
court ruled on yet another
There's some
abortion case,
nice
temporarily allowing
philosophical
emergency
blows,
abortions
but
to
it's been
continue
civil
in
so
Idaho,
far.
despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly,
Yeah.
I think it's
Everyone,
important to
Ronald
believe in the
Reagan,
exceptions.
Ronald
Some
Reagan.
people, you have to
Yep,
follow your
yep,
heart.
yep.
Some people don't believe in that.
Every
but I believe in
conservative
the exceptions for
says,
rape,
"Look at me, I'm
incest,
just like
and
that
the
guy
life
because he
of
was the
mother.
greatest,"
I think
right?
it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart, but you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we
I don't
brought
know,
it
Dimitri.
back to the
That's a good
states,
question.
and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you.
All right,
President
Biden, clap
been a
back.
terrible
Your
thing
chance,
what
baby.
you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state
Except
where
for
in
they
6
didn't.
weeks, You
Welcome
don't
back,
even know whether
Casper.
you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states.
Also, just a heads
Let
up, I
each
got
state
like
have
a
a different
5-second
rule.
delay.
Look, there's so
Got
many
it.
young women who have been,
It's okay.
including
We
a
just
young
wanna let
woman
it
who
rock.
just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women.
Thank you. You're
murdered
done.
by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic
Damn.
of abortion, President Biden.
I know what
7
Biden was
states-
trying to say,
I'll
but
let you do that.
he didn't.
This is the same
he
topic.
it didn't.
7 states have
There's no life
legal
in his
restriction
answer.
on how far into
Like,
a
it's
pregnancy a
not
woman
good
can
so
obtain
far.
an abortion. Do you support any legal limits
Especially
on
after
how
those
late
faces,
a woman
dude.
should be able to terminate
These faces are
pregnancy?
I
priceless.
support Roe v. Wade.
I mean,
which had 3
these are your
trimesters.
reaction memes
First
for like
time
the
is
next.
between the woman and the doctor.
Week, yeah.
Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time
Also-
is between the doctor. Between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen. Democrat or Republican, nobody wants it to happen.
Oh my God!
It's simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good
Except
thing.
for
We think
you
it's a radical
are.
thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51
Interesting.
years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away.
51 years doesn't
What's he
matter.
going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal
I can
ban
make a mistake
on
for
abortion,
51
period,
years at the
across
same time doesn't
board.
mean it's
At
not a
6 weeks or
mistake.
7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border
Sorry,
security.
Trump, you're
President
done.
Biden, a record number of migrants
I know you
have
wants to get
illegally
one more,
crossed
but
the
you're
southern
done,
border
dog.
on your watch.
was
Overwhelming border states,
also
and
civil.
overburdening cities such as
I'm
New
waiting
York and
for the name
Chicago, and
calling.
in some cases causing
I'm
real
waiting for
safety and
them to
security
call each other
concerns.
names.
Given that, why
That's
should
when it
voters
gets
trust
good.
you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan
mean-
agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me endorsed my position. In addition to that,
Real
we
quick,
found
Dimitri,
ourselves
because
in
I
a
don't want to
situation
talk
where
when these guys are
when he was
talking,
president,
but
he was
you're right.
taking-
It's
separating
been a long
babies
time since we got a
from
young
their
guy.
mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed
it's hard
it in
to
a way
remember that
now
Obama was
we're in a
only in his
situation
50s.
where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
Yes.
we had the safest
No, it's
border in the
getting
history of
it's
our
getting
country.
good now.
The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my
Real quick,
presidency,
watch Andrew
we had,
Callahan's
according to
crossing the
Patrol,
border.
who was great. And
He
by the
met
way,
a
who
lot of
endorsed me
people
for
that are
president,
all
but
over the
I
world
won't say
that crossing.
But they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest
You call him
border in
Brandon?
history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's
He
never
called
been
him
anything
Brandon,
like it.
dude.
And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up
Thank
in
you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's
Just hella data,
exaggerating, he's
dog.
lying.
No. Andrew
President
Callahan,
Trump,
he did it
staying on the
himself.
topic of immigration, you
He
said that
interviewed
you're
so
gonna
many
carry out,
people
quote, "the
coming
largest
across that
domestic
border."
deportation operation
Not
in
looking
American
good,
history,
Biden.
unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant
Well,
in America, including
and
those
we're
who have
already
jobs,
having
including
Biden
those
not
whose
being able to
spouses
answer.
are citizens,
Yeah.
and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying.
With the
and
bad
also
water?
killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in
Bad water?
California, in every state in the union.
California?
We don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've
I don't
never
know
seen. We call
what
it
he means by the
migrant crime.
by the
I call it
yeah,
Biden migrant
water thing.
crime.
But
They're
what he's
killing
talking
our
about is there's
citizens
been
at
a
level that
lot
we've
of
never
murders
seen before.
recently
And you're
that
reading it
were
like
by
these 3
people
incredible
who
young
were
girls over the last
here
few
illegally.
days.
Yeah,
One of them
I
just
get
spoke to
that
the
part.
mother, and
I
they
didn't
just
get
had
the water.
funeral
The
for
water
this
is-
girl,
he goofed it
12
up.
years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street.
So
They're dying
luxury,
because he
dude.
doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved.
Actually,
they
that's not
abandoned.
true either.
We had by far the highest, and now it's
Yeah,
down in less than half.
Trump is pulling
because he's done all these great
the
things that we
garbage
did,
that he
and I
usually
think
does,
He did it just
but-
because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in.
President
and it's a
Biden?
very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every
Yeah,
single
no,
one.
Let's go. Let's see the clap back.
Veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their
Not
families have
everything.
it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits. They're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits.
Don't
Came
mention
back
your
with
son.
Stage 4 glioblastoma.
Biden, don't mention your son.
In France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery.
He always
World
does
War I cemetery,
this, and
refused to go
he
there.
sticks his foot
He was standing
straight
with
in his
four-star
mouth
general,
every time.
And he told me, he said, I
It's okay,
don't want
it's
to go in there
okay.
because they're a bunch of
We'll
losers.
see how
suckers."
this happens.
My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Oh, we're gonna go to name calling
First of all, that
Biden.
was a
Hell yeah,
made-up
dude.
quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
Four-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said
It's getting good, dude.
period.
It's getting
That's
good.
Number one. And number
Oh
two,
yeah, no,
the idea,
this is the grade A
I apologize
mudslinging.
to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing.
Both of them are
That's what the
blowing
VA is doing
smoke on
now.
this whole
They're
veteran
doing
thing.
more for
If
veterans than ever
anything,
before in our
Eisenhower
history.
did it more for
thank you so
veterans
much.
than any person and
Topic of foreign
president.
Yeah,
policy. I want to begin with
oh my
Russia's
lord!
war
Right before they
against
get
Ukraine,
in,
which
Biden
is
actually
now
did
in
a
its
good
third
clapback
year.
by calling him a
Former
loser.
President Trump,
But then,
Russian
of
President
course, Trump's going
Vladimir
to talk
Putin
about
says
the
he'll only end
laptop
this war
because that's.
if Russia keeps the
Kaz,
Ukrainian
this is amazing. I
territory
don't know
it
if
has
you're
already
excited about this.
claimed,
I'm hella excited.
And Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all,
I'm
and our soldiers
enjoying it, but
can't stand
it's
this
one of
guy.
those things where it's
They
like I
can't
can
stand
hear the
him.
bullshit
They think he's
on
the
both
worst
of them
commander
too.
in chief,
Of
if
course.
that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As
Wait,
far
wait.
as Russia
That's the
and
biggest
Ukraine,
smile he had
if
all
we had
night
a real
tonight.
President, the president that knew
Biden
that
does
was
not think
respected
Trump
by
has
Putin,
any friends.
he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got
Now,
no love
this
lost.
is where
But he
Trump
should have
is
fired
good
those generals. No
with,
general
with
got
this stuff, 'cause
fired
he's-
for the most
he's hitting the-
embarrassing
Yep,
moment
I know.
in the
Let
history of our
him cook.
country,
Let him cook.
Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump, as
I never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question,
I've
which
lost
is,
who
are
he's
Putin's
talking
terms
about.
acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine.
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
Ooh, that's some confidence, man.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants.
War criminals.
And then you think he'll stop
that
there?
means nothing.
You think he'll stop when he
War
if he
itself
takes
is a
Ukraine?
crime.
What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked
Respectable.
Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages.
What?
Among
Hold on,
those
what-
held
what?
and thought to still be
Respectable
alive are
for
5
Biden.
Americans.
I know,
Israel's
I know,
response has
I
brought
know
thousands
you
of
are loving
Palestinians
Trump,
create
and
a
I love him too,
humanitarian
but
crisis in
I gotta be
Gaza.
unbiased
President Biden,
and respect when
you
respect's
put
due.
forward a
Hey,
proposal
he
to
made a whole
resolve this
sentence in an
conflict.
argument
But so
with
far,
no
Hamas has
with
not
no spacing.
released
So you got to
the
calm
remaining
down, Casper. All right?
hostages, And Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7
I take it back.
to the
He's
Israelis and Netanyahu
regressing.
himself have
He's
endorsed the
regressing.
plan I put forward. Endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be
I was
continued.
going to say,
we continue
no,
to send our
actually,
experts
you managed
and
to
our
get a
intelligence people
Palestinian
as to how
killed.
they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Going back to Ukraine for 1 second.
This is a
losing
losing.
separating us.
I was
The
going to say
European
this is a
nations
losing
together
battle for.
have spent $100 billion, or
for
maybe
Joe.
more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have, our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
South Korea only
President
cares
Trump,
about
just to follow on,
Ukraine
would
because
you
North
support
Korea
the
cares
creation of
about
an
Russia.
independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021.
Oh, shit,
After
January
you
6th.
rallied your supporters that
Biden,
day,
if this
some
is
of
your
them stormed
chance
the
to
Capitol
beat Trump,
stop the
this is it.
constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes.
You better come
As
hard,
president,
dog.
You swore an oath to,
You
quote,
better
preserve,
come
protect,
hard.
and defend, unquote,
I
the
mean,
Constitution.
you watch his face.
What do you
He's
say
been
to
coming
voters
already.
who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done.
What was he gonna freaking do? It's not like he had a
to
cell
commit their
phone to
sentences.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
No, but he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this
Let him
guy
cook.
is
More like burn the
responsible
stew.
for
Jesus.
doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
He could have done better.
They've done
Biden
to
could have done
some
better. This
people
was
that
his
are
chance
so
to hit
innocent.
hard. He didn't hit
You ought
hard.
to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person at this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right
He
now.
finally said
The fact
it.
of the matter is,
Finally.
what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first
Come on,
two
man.
debates we had,
Come on.
the first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them
What'd
to
I miss?
stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute.
It started
President
okay,
Trump, for a
Biden, and then it
follow-up
ended.
question I have.
Biden, come on, man.
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted.
shit.
Going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have
Way
been
decent
convicted
dodge.
before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything we're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
This is a little messy, but let's see.
That I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any
Let him cook, Cassidy. Let him cook.
No.
Wrong.
That's not what I'm
It's
worried
simply
about.
wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties
Someone's never
for
paid attention to
molesting
history
a woman
class.
in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Personal
I didn't have
attacks.
sex with a porn star. Number one.
Having
Number
sex with a
two, that
porn
was a
star is not
case that was started
necessarily a
and
bad
moved. They
thing.
moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote,
That
Donald
was,
Trump
both
and his
sides
MAGA
are sloppy, but
Republicans
there's
are determined
a
to destroy
few
American
key moments that
democracy.
kept it interesting.
Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face.
Does the most
I
corrupt
don't know
man
what
in
the juries
America.
will
I mean,
do,
holy shit.
But I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any
Beer
president
one
say
done.
that
Beer
I
two
thought he'd write
activate.
some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang
didn't.
when
He
back
freaking
in
didn't.
Germany.
His son
And
died
and the young
in
woman got
Colorado
spoke to
because
the
of a
mother.
skiing
And
accident.
They asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people? And this is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
That was
President Trump.
That was good. Let's see how
Both
he
of you know
responds.
that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said
Trump's over here like, "When did I
100%
say anything like
exoneration
that?"
on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
That is a good point, and it was good that he reflected back about that event. Oh no, okay, round one's over.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Casper.
Hold on. Here's the problem: is that he didn't actually say anything about the torch-wielding Nazis. He said
45 years of covering Congress,
not including the white supremacists. There are very good people on both sides.
Yeah, but okay. Before we get into any of that, who do you think won round one, Casper? Go.
No one.
That's honest.
That's honest. Certainly not the American people.
And we lose regardless. But in the terms of the debate, I think Biden calling Trump a loser and said, "No, you are the loser." That was a good clap back. I got to give respect when respect's due. He was the first one that went straight to name calling. On the other hand, Trump had a very cool indirect clap back when Biden was like, he was saying some shit. I forgot what it was. And then Biden was like, I don't know what he's talking about. Anyways, and he just did his own thing. I was like, damn, dude, the fucking burn. So I thought Biden was going to lose steam, and it's puttering. But that cocaine's actually helping him up, man. I think and they don't have any like people to help them. They don't have coaches. So whoever of the Secret Service with the crack bag, he can't give it to him. So I don't know, man. Here's
the other thing.
Go ahead.
You can tell Biden prepared for a very different debate than Trump did.
Yeah.
Because Trump lost the last one on the whole picking on an old man by name calling and all this sort of stuff in 2020.
Yeah.
And now Biden's coming out being all puffing up his chest and calling names and doing all that sort of stuff. But the problem is there, like, for example, the whole thing with the Charlottesville thing, Trump was right.
About what? Elaborate. You can't just dead air that.
Trump was right. Biden. Hold on. Sorry, I need to mute this stream for a second because I can't think about what I'm saying when I'm hearing my own voice.
Okay.
So like the whole Charlottesville thing, it's been shown a million times. If you watch the full clip in context, he says, not including the Nazis and white supremacists, there were very good people on both sides. And he's not wrong. The whole Unite the Right rally thing originally started out as like conservatives from all over the place trying to come together, and then the Nazi types really kind of spun it out of control, which, that's what you expect from extremists.
I get it that yes, so there are bad apples if there are doing that, but for a debate purpose and using the information against your opponent, Biden actually focusing on that was a very good way for this debate, regardless if it's true or not or whatever. And for me, as if I'm thinking about someone debating, especially Biden, because he looks weak from the Afghanistan and everything else, he has to clap back. So he has to figure out, how can I clap Trump hard? And so that's what it is. But we're back. So we're going to unmute this and listen to round two.
First terms,
round two.
And you'd certainly
I'm actually
going to
peace out
in the second term.
All right.
President
I'll
Biden,
see you later, Casper.
While black unemployment dropped to a record
Come back in
low
when you
under
can.
the presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one.
What question is
There's
this?
more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy
your
was
jobs,
flat on
man.
its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that there are $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops.
I don't know about that,
Providing
dude.
For equity and making sure people
You
have
go San Francisco,
There's a lot
Los
going
Angeles.
on. But in inflation, he caused it by his
Pittsburgh,
tremendous
bruh.
malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them. In
Dimitri, I don't know if you know this,
ever.
but you look
They're
at
saying
Trump,
ever. I read this morning.
his
where ever,
hair
the
and
best
his
numbers.
ear looks
He's
like
lost
Jotaro
much of
with
the
his
black
hat.
population because he's done a
I don't know where
horrible
it begins
job
or
for
ends.
black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
We had
And
H2O.
We were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have those. They don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage, I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social
Even
Security.
Biden laughed, dude.
He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control? One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many
cut 'em
older
off.
Americans,
Respecting the
Social
rules.
Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're gonna, I've been proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think
All
that
right.
would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing will do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And that's what. And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance
I don't know
where
about that.
400,000 people,
Canada,
40
Japan,
million
everybody else
people
has a
do
little
not
bit
have
better.
insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things, too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it, because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place
strategy.
of our
He
citizens
keeps
there. What
talking
they're doing
about
to
that
the
border.
VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession, and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to
Trying
the
to do
cost
the
of
reverse
childcare, which
Uno
many
card,
American
dude.
families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of childcare in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of childcare for two
I'm
children
live.
is more
What's up?
than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make childcare more affordable?
Just to go back, the
you mean you can't hear
general
me?
got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly
base?
respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire
People can hear me. Dimitri, can you
He
hear
never
me?
fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was
I can hear
involved
you.
with that Afghan.
Dimitri on stream
the
says he can hear me.
Horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history
hear
of our
you now.
country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people?
It is
many
such a
from
disaster.
prisons,
I
many from-
know it's a
from
disaster, dude.
Mental
It's
institutions.
so
Did you
funny.
fire anybody that
It's
allowed
so
our country
funny,
to be
dude.
destroyed? Joe, our country is being
Well, it's not,
destroyed as you and I
but
sit
it
up
is.
here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because
I'll
I
give
said
you
it.
the
But look,
cliff
he's
notes
the
later,
worst
all right?
president in the
I'll give you
history
the
of our
cliff
country.
notes.
He's
Thanks for
destroyed our
watching though
country.
for the
Now, all of a
beginning
sudden,
part.
He's trying to get a little
I'll
tough on the border.
I'll
He
see you later, dog.
Came out with
All right, bye.
a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit,
All right.
like this much.
This is what
It's
we call we do a little
insignificant.
bit of
He
trolling.
wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters.
One of the viewers were like,
And
"Dog,
I
just
don't
let me
think we
let me
just
know when they
can't
talk
let it
about
happen. If he
aliens, because this
wins
is such a
election,
disaster."
Our country doesn't have
kinda
a
is.
chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak.
You're back,
No
baby.
one wants to screw around with
Dude,
us.
you
Nobody.
just fucking
Number
watch,
one.
dog.
Number
Just
two,
fucking
the
watch.
idea that we're talking
You
about
know
worse
it's bad, but just
presidents.
watch it,
I wasn't
dog.
joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history, one through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually
Get some
nothing
popcorn,
to
get some
child
beers,
care.
dog.
We should
Join.
significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage
It's
businesses
so bad.
to hold,
It's so good.
to have.
Thank you, President
This
Biden.
beats
President Trump, the question was about
90 Day
what would you do to
Fiancé.
make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
This
Just so you
beats
understand,
90,
we have Poland,
100
we have
pound
other
sisters.
things that they rate him the worst.
This is the greatest
because what
reality
he's done
show
is so
ever, dude.
bad. And they rate me. I'll show you. I will show you. And they rate me one of the best. Okay. And if I'm
Biden
given
actually
another
yelled
4 years,
that
I
picked
will
up
be the
on
best. I think I'll be
his
the best.
mic.
Nobody's ever created an economy like us.
like,
Nobody
"Show
ever
me,
cut
show
taxes
me."
like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes.
That's a murder
by
face
4
right
times.
there.
He wants the
He's
Trump
gonna
tax
murder
cuts to
Trump.
expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are important. Number two,
Biden, come on.
He's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are at the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
Don't
President
talk about
Biden.
don't talk about
Thank you,
China.
President
Trump's
Biden.
going to come
Let's
back hard,
let's
man.
discuss an epidemic
He's going to talk
impacting
about
millions
China.
of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid
Sorry,
crisis. And for both
you're
of you,
right, dude.
the number
This is
of overdose deaths in
this
this
is a
country
retirement
has
home,
gone
dude.
up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids.
Shit.
What will you
We're
do
gonna
to
talk about
help
Fetty.
Americans right
What are you
now
gonna do?
in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a man.
I told you he was going to talk about China.
He gets money from China. We have, so I think he's afraid to deal with them or something.
I knew he was going to talk about that shit,
He never
dog.
took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The
Okay.
question was, what are you going to do
Okay.
to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling
Yeah,
to get
back
the
to
treatment they
addiction.
need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers.
You bought
very,
dogs?
Very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden.
Okay, so Trump bought dogs and Biden
Fentanyl went
put them in the
down
doghouse?
for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents,
Machines?
more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done,
For Fetty?
he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill.
Why is this the first
We
time I
need
heard
those
about
machines? We need those machines. And we're
Fetty
coming
machines?
down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl, and Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again,
Mexico's
the
not
question
helping
is
you, Doug.
about
Because I
Americans
saw
in
the
the
Andrew
throes of addiction right
Callahan
now, struggling to get the
episode
treatment
when he
they need.
talks about the border shit.
Because this does pertain it to
It's basically
He ended
Fetty
remain in
comes from
Mexico.
China,
He ended
goes
catch
to
and
Mexico,
release. I made it catch and release in
goes
Mexico,
into the
not catch
border.
and
So
release
I
here.
don't know what the fuck he's
we
talking
had
about,
so
dog.
many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Age.
First of all,
Let's talk about age.
Spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans all over the world.
I have to fact check that, but that sounds
you have 40
right.
seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank
That
you.
clap back, man.
Former President Trump, to follow up,
clapped.
you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape
Drop
as I
and give me
was,
20.
Years ago.
Whoever
I feel very good. I
fails
feel the same.
loses.
But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen
I'm just thinking that scene of Sunny in Philadelphia when Mac and Dennis are like trying to see who's healthier.
Pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag.
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like
let's
not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you.
This
Will you
is
pledge
some
tonight
good.
that once all legal
this
challenges
is
have been
good.
exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election?
Tony,
regardless of
welcome,
who
dog.
wins?
This is beautiful.
You will say
this
right
is
now
history
that political violence
in the
any
making.
form is unacceptable.
I can't wait for the golfing tournament, dude, between
It's
Biden
totally
and Trump.
Unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also
Hold
my
up,
statement
to all
that I
my
made in
Mexican
the Rose
viewers
Garden,
out there,
you would say it's
talking
one
about
of
you,
the
Jose.
strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation.
Cue up the slogan.
We're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman.
The name drops.
And he's going to drive us into World War III.
Biden? World War III. Let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up,
all right.
The question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old.
That war is pretty...
all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked.
I saw on Reddit
the question was, will you accept
a drone
the results of the election,
hitting a Russian
of who wins, yes or no,
and
please?
it's made him into a blood eagle, and his heart was beating.
Election,
still,
absolutely.
I was like,
would have
holy
much rather
shit.
accepted these.
War is ugly.
The fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that. Then I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't
You're
stand
a
the loss.
whiner.
Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back. with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Round 2.
Live from Georgia.
Round 2. We're going to mute this and talk about round 2. Okay. The first few questions, it was a sloppy. They had their narratives and they did their narratives, but I've noticed a strategy for Biden. What he does is that he says something really burning and clapbackable at the end of the timer. He doesn't throw his cards out. And so Trump is like, let me go back to what he said, which eats up his time. I mean, you could just see it right there. He's like, you're a whiner and you'll always be a whiner. That's like the last word. So, and then Trump's got to deal with it because now we're watching fucking, available at the App Store and Google Play, whatever. Biden keeps coming back. Trump keeps coming back of saying, he's going back to the narrative of the border. Almost every question he has, he keeps coming back to it, which I think is very interesting because the border, I like, regardless of like Democrat or Republican or whatever fucking side, if you just like watch, like, okay, if you watch Andrew, I keep saying Andrew Callahan, but his fucking documentary was so good. He goes over across the border, hires a coyote, and then does the process of crossing the border. But during that whole time, he met so many people, and the narrative is like, oh, the Mexicans are coming over, right? And then it's not really just Mexicans. It's like everybody. And he did an interview with this one guy, and he went everywhere. He was like, I don't know, like in Russia, and then went to Korea, and then went to like Saudi Arabia, and then went to Brazil, and did like a layover in like Guatemala, and then back to Mexico, then the border. And it's like, wow, you went all that way just to come to America? And it's because, yeah, man, America's awesome. It's a land of opportunity, and you do make good money. But he came illegally because why? The borders are hella open. And even after the fact, he, an off-duty, like border person that's supposed to like, not talk to the people, told him, hey, yeah, they're being located in that national park. And so he went there to the national park, and was fascinating was because he followed these people. They put them on buses, and the buses went to reservations. And reservations, this particular one is technically shady. And then the patrol, the police, the Native American police was basically saying, this is our jurisdiction, you can't follow anymore. And that was like the end of his video. So it's like everybody's coming over these borders. So Trump is basically saying the reason why X, Y, and Z sucks because of the border, because of you. And every time they talk about it and dismiss it, it's like, it's such a huge issue because more people are like actually going to the border, interviewing people, understanding, they're more knowledgeable, that we know that when they have that rhetoric, it's fucking fake. But anyways, back to round 3. I gotta say, Biden's doing well. I thought again he's going to lose energy, but he had some good clapbacks, and this is one hell of a debate.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing
I need to get another beer.
as predetermined by a
All right, what happened to my audio?
Deficit.
Sorry.
Number one, he's increased
Audio's back
inflation
on.
because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for the us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big
Beers
pharma
down,
companies.
beer 3
Well,
ready.
guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every
Next in
senior,
Cali.
no matter what they.
My
how
fellow,
much
my fellow
prescription they
Californian
need.
dog.
You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credit people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give
Did
people.
I miss something? Why are they talking
Thank you,
about water
President
and
Biden.
lead
President
pipes?
Trump,
It's like
you
a
now have
huge
2 minutes
issue.
for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you. Because they don't
1,000
respect
times
you, and they have to
Charlottesville. Damn.
respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Oh, shit, is it over now? Was that it? I didn't mute it. I think they muted. That was the closing statements. Okay, if that was it. No, that can't just be it. Is it already it? Holy shit. It has been 90 minutes, and they did say 90 minutes. All right. Final closing thoughts. So I thought there was going to be a round 3. Round 3 is just closing statements. Closing statements are a little bit weak. I think both candidates hit hard in the beginning, in the mid. The ending was a little bit weak, but it was still strong. I thought Trump was just going to beat Biden because, again, he's an old man that needs like crack to stay awake. But gotta give credit when credit's due. Biden, he stayed awake, and he didn't need that much crack. But I still think Americans are going to vote not because of the policies, not about any of that shit. Honestly, I think they're just going to vote because how much energy these old men have. Technically, Trump has more energy. You could see it. You could hear it. Biden had complete sentences, but again, he was like, kind of like stuttering a little bit, and it's the age. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of Americans are going to vote because of that. I didn't think Biden did well with the Afghanistan shit. Also, a lot of people think he pooped his pants during that D-Day shit. Also, I don't care about the pooping pants part, but what I do care is that there's many times where he just stares into nothing, and then people have to like help him. They come over here, and it's like, I don't know if you have like grandparents or older people, but that shit's real, right? Like you have to be like over here, right? And it's like he's leading the country. Well, again, Trump is like what 3 years difference or whatever they fucking said. So it's not. It's still bad because Trump is going to be like Biden in a few years. So it's like, but again, he's not like it now, and I think that's how people are going to do. As for clapping back, I think they both did well. Again, like I said, from the round two, when Biden was like, or Trump was like, I don't know what the fuck he said. Anyways, he just kept on going. He talked about his son and the Hunter Biden laptop shit. I thought that was kind of fun. And then Biden calling Trump a loser too. It's like they both hated each other, which is great. It was very entertaining. So Saidi says, time to give Biden coke so they on equal footing. Yep. And then Tony Walker, yeah, that man's too old to be president. Dude, for me personally, Yang Gang, dog. Because that motherfucker is the only person that was like, dude, technology is going to go so fast and we need to pay people shit because technology is going too fast. And they're like, universal money, that ain't going to happen. And as soon as COVID hit, here's some free money, Trump checks. And then Andrew's like, dude, I already said that shit. But they didn't, Andrew Yang's not even in the game anymore, but they needed a third candidate. I don't think a lot of Americans want Trump or Biden, but if you had to choose, I think Trump's going to win, dude, just because of the energy levels. Yang eventually sold out. Yeah, I know he did, man. I know Yang Gang, not anymore. But yeah, it's not a good day for America, but it was a great day for entertainment. It was a great day for entertainment, dude. I had fun commentating on this shit. Also, I like the commentators. Give credit where credit's due. I think CNN might do some stupid shit to me and be like, oh, you can, commentate on this because we need to control the narrative because of fake news and shit. But credit where credit's due. The CNN questionnaire people, the guy and the girl, they did well. They gave everybody their time to speak. They were cordial. They said, cut it out. Like there wasn't like a big flag. So, two of the questions are kind of like, it's very pushy on the narrative. But other than those two questions, it's been fine. It's not about who's friends, it's about the friends you made along the way. Exactly, dude. Friends you made along the way. Yeah, what are the good moments? The border. I think Trump's strategy about the border was very, very important because I know a lot of people are talking about the border, and it's nothing about like, oh, took our jobs, right? It's like it's not about that shit. Or I know sometimes they try to play like the racism card, like, oh, it's because you're Mexican, you don't want, you just want like white people and shit. Nah, dog, that shit's stupid. That shit is just narrative propaganda bullshit slop, dude. Ideally, it's the fucking process. If someone wants to be an American, it takes them like 10 fucking years because of like the system in place. They gotta do an interview, then they gotta do a test, then they gotta do another test, then they gotta do another interview. And then they gotta be like, okay, wait 5 years until we process this shit because we're 20 years behind schedule. And it's like, dude, like there's so much like automation already. And if you want jobs, make those fucking jobs, dog. Get these people in. But they don't do that. And so what happens? You get a lot of people who are like, I want to escape a country that sucks ass and I want to make money. I want to bang hot blonde white women and just be like Ricky Ricardo from I Love Lucy and live the American dream, right? So what do? They're going to wait 10 years? No. They're going to try to hop the border or hire a coyote or do some shit to like cross the border. And then they'll just make it as they go along. And I mean, it's wrong because the people who are waiting 10 years to get in basically get cut in line, but like that happens because of the fucking system. And I mean, that's the same thing with like Nintendo games, right? When everyone's like, oh, you're pirating Nintendo games. It's like, well, are they releasing these Nintendo games for everybody? Or they're just like not? And, you know, if you're, you know, it's the same shit. It's the same shit, different day, different story. So, Biden talking about Trump and like Charlottesville and January 6th and stuff, and talking about like he himself is strong, but Trump is not. I also thought that was a good strategy because, again, Biden is not looking good, right? So how can Biden look good? By being strong and reflecting on his opponent's faults, because he always talks about the good people on both sides, right? And we saw the original video. We saw the questionnaire from the other presidential debate. It's old, it's hash, but as a strategy, it's trying to refresh those people's minds. Because if you've seen all the footage and you already know your opinion, that's great. But a lot of these people that are going to vote, they threw that shit out of their head. They just threw that shit out of their head. Why? Because they got shit to do. They got bills to pay. You know, they have a job. They want to jerk off on the weekends, whatever they want, right? So they're not going to remember that. But when you put it back in their head like Inception, they're going to remember. So that's why Biden was saying like, dude, remember this, remember that. And so I think that was also a good strategy. I don't know if it's going to pay off or work in his favor, but there you go. Let's see. Saidi says, day I jerk off on weekends anymore. Who do I vote for this? Nah, that shit's free. You vote whoever you want about that. So anyways, again, I think Trump looks better than Biden because of the energy, regardless of anything else. But I do think both candidates did a very better job. It was a little bit more respectful than the last debate that they had. The last debate that they had, it was ugly. It was very, very ugly. This one was a lot more cleaner. The interviewers were better. Everything was better. So that's great. Let's see. Saidi, issue is, as you said, comes down to excitement and voter turnout. Exactly. So if you're an American and you're watching me now in the beginning, middle, or future, vote. Vote. Do your best. I know these two candidates suck ass, but pick the better poison. Pick the better poison. And just hope and vote for somebody to go up the ranks, dude. I don't know, man. But just pick the better poison, or not even that. The better poison and whoever's going to help you internally, right? Because one thing that I've talked to a lot from random people, even in the state of California, it's like, who do you like more? And people are like, technically, my stocks were higher when Trump was office. And they're probably going to vote because of that, because that's in their best interest because of stocks, right? Some people might want to vote Biden because of their electric cars and bullshit, right? Whatever you think is better for you personally, vote for your own agenda. Second, you vote for other people's agenda and their opportunity to have what you have. So one thing that I remember was that Trump was like, he was like, oh yeah, gamers are bad and video games or violence. And I remember a lot of people like, hey, don't do that shit because, you know, these people like to play games and they vote for you. And he's like, oh, never mind. I'm like, yeah, but remember that shit. I'm like, what a boomer shit to say, but you know, he did say it. I don't know what I'm talking about, but thanks for watching. I love every single one of you. Be a fucking degenerate, drink a beer, enjoy the demise of America. GG.